Well, the 2019 general elections are likely to be the most closely contested since the first democratic poll in 1994. Now, if support for the governing ANC were to dip below 50%, opposition parties would need 30 days to put together a coalition to form a national government. It's a scenario that once seemed unthinkable, and many analysts will say it may yet still be a few elections away. But if the 2016 local government poll results are anything to go by, it's certainly one for which the opposition must prepare. So, since 2 years ago, the Democratic Alliance has relied on the support of coalition partners to run the metros it won, Johannesburg, Tshwane and Nelson Mandela Bay. Today, at that press conference, they really highlighted successes in the three cities. The leader of the DA, Mmusi Maimane, joins us now on the line. Good evening to you and thank you for your time. I suppose coalition governments are a necessary headache, if you like, if you don't have the numbers for an outright majority. How well have things worked since 2016?
Good evening, and it's been an important journey. I think South Africa has had coalitions before, in the sense that the ANC itself is a coalition of different people. Now we need united South Africans who share a common vision, who say the number one priority for South Africans is to create work, is to ensure citizens are safe, and ultimately to make sure that we eradicate corruption. This has become a central theme, and so with all the minor challenges, it has been a worthwhile project to embark on, because today we can talk about budgets that are passed, a fight against corruption, and ultimately making sure that the ANC doesn't continue to govern as though it's inconsequential to the people.
There have been some tough moments, though, particularly with respect to your relationship with the EFF. Now, even though they're not a formal coalition partner, there have been some problems in places like Nelson Mandela Bay.
Absolutely. But the challenge is, when you're dealing with an individual, like in Nelson Mandela Bay, certainly cannot be the defining point of whether coalitions work or not. You've got to say, if someone wants to work with the ANC, they must move on and do that. And so, in the case of Councillor Bobani, he proceeded and voted with the opposition. It's against the spirit of coalitions, and therefore we must allow him to go do that. Our sole focus is always about the delivery to all the people. And I think even when you come to Nelson Mandela Bay never used to have buses on the road. Now it has buses. It never used to have a metro police. Now it has a metro police that is fighting against crime. So these are issues that far overcome, or at least overshadow, someone like Councillor Bobani as an individual in this regard.
There are those who would argue that these are in fact marriages of inconvenience, because you are sometimes forced to compromise on what may be fundamental principles, the idea of losing some battles to win the war.
No, I think when you say what is the compromise, you'll never compromise on principle. Each party, as I highlighted even today, retains its own identity and keeps its own journey. What we've got to do is say to ourselves, the things that we agree on are the rule of law, making sure that those things are in place, and non-racial South Africa, making sure that in fact it's an economy that is open for private citizens to create work, ensuring that in fact you never compromise on stealing money or actually building a capable state. Those principles have guided everything that we do in coalitions. There are differences in each party and different emphases, but at the end of the day, those 5 things are the basis upon which we work, and we've never compromised on those, and that's been the foreground of why the coalitions have worked.
You have said you will all campaign as individual parties, but how big a consideration would it be to aim for a coalition at national level, should of course the ANC fail to get that majority?
It's an important thing. We always ask people to say, go vote and give a mandate so that we can strengthen and hold the ANC to account and ultimately remove the ANC out of power. It's not unthinkable to believe that the opposition can form a coalition at national government. We simply have to say to ourselves, we are not here to settle ideological differences. We are not here to decide. We are here to agree on, if we agree on the Constitution and that the Constitution is in place, if we agree that we have to be non-racial, if we agree that ultimately we have to keep citizens safe, create work through opening a market-based economy, we agree on that program. I believe we can set up a government that will be accountable, that will be intolerant of corruption, and we can move on ahead. And I think that's an exciting prospect. So given the time frame that happens after a general election, if citizens come out and say, look, the ANC has spent its time governing for so long and our lives are not changing. We require the change. It will be important for them to vote for that change.
The DA has been sometimes accused of arrogance by some of the smaller parties in dealing with coalition partners. What lessons would you say have been learned in managing relationships that are sometimes fraught with tension?
Yeah, I think so long as we keep an open channel and we keep relationships and such. Remember, it's a bit like a new marriage. You've got to come at it and say, how do you work together? What are the ways of working together? And there have been many statements that have been made. But I think overall, as you could experience the spirit within which all the parties that were even there today, there's a deep sense of commitment to Project South Africa, to the project of placing South Africans first. So undeniably, for where we sit as a political party, we believe that it's always important to work with all political parties. Our sole mandate is to say, how do we bring South Africans together, who many of them share different views and speak different languages. But ultimately, when we work together and we can achieve the outcomes that we're starting to get into a culture upon which coalitions not only are acceptable, but are even functional and delivering to the people. And so it's a long-term project. We mustn't look at minor disagreements to supersede the major issues that we achieve.
Well, you talk about the parties that were there. The UDM wasn't there today. Do you think they might still be sore over Nelson Mandela Bay? They weren't present at that press conference today.
No, well, what is clear, I mean, we've worked well with the UDM, we've worked well with them in Johannesburg and Tshwane. We have had no formal communication from them that they are withdrawing. So I would argue the case that, as far as we're concerned, we will work with anyone. And the door is always open. The door is always open to say, let us build a coalition of South Africans that want to work together for the better of all the people. So if the UDM is certainly most welcome within that framework.
You've said that your immediate aim for 2019 would be, if of course not nationally, but certainly Gauteng and the Northern Cape. How have all the recent troubles that you've had within your party, how have they dented your chances in terms of just the image of the DA and how it is perceived?
No, I think the DA is strong and it's a growing party. You can recall the fact that ultimately when you go into the space of even coalition-led governments, they require an organization to grow and be able to manage those things. These are healthy problems of a growing organization. And for us, we always ask the question, what do you go to the polls to vote for? Do you vote for people? Do you vote for someone who says if there are questions of holding people to account and public reps to account, do we do it in such a way that voters can see and trust us that when we are required to take action, we will? We will never sacrifice our principles at the altar of electoral populism. We are a party that stands strong for the rule of law, and wherever we govern, South Africans can test us and say, the DA always, where there's corruption, we stand up. Even if it's against our own people, we stand up strongly against it. And so ultimately, I think that South Africans are seeing for themselves the fact that the DA as a growing organization, as a party of government, is demonstrating the difference that we've all been waiting for. I think all of us must be sick and tired of political parties that hide things under the carpet in the interest of electoral populism, rather than, in fact, dealing with services for the people.
All right, we'll have to leave it there with the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mmusi Maimane, on the line there with us from Johannesburg. Back to Francis.